And I'm so glad that everybody could jump on tonight, even though human error, I screwed something up, go figure. So the first thing I want to do is I want everybody to grab an oil and I want you to apply that oil. And I have Envision. I also grabbed Loyalty because they're both amazing oils, right? So just grab an oil. Yours is dark. Is that Abundance? Yep, Britta's got Abundance. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do, if you have not already, I want you to make sure to drink some Ningxia Red. I have my Ningxia Red in water, if you can see it in there. Because when we are doing things for a business, we are doing things for other people. And every time we do something for somebody else, we are sharing a little bit of us. And so we need to remember that we have to fill our own cups. Literally, we have to fill our own cups with our water and with our yumminess. And we need to just remember that we can give and give and give, but we have to give back to ourselves. So make sure that you, are drinking your Ningxia Red. And I'm going to I know this is a business class, but I'm going to shout out vitamin D, especially this time of year. Take your vitamin D. If you think you've taken too much, you are not taking enough. And Britta just gave me the vitamin C. I think that's what you were trying to do. And so vitamin C is also huge. Obviously Young Living Super C is awesome, but we've also been trying to get vitamin C in other avenues like orange juice and just like we've been eating a green leafy vegetable every day this week. Go us, right? Because sometimes that's hard to do. So just remember that you need to fill yourself just before you can really help anybody else. And I don't mean like you can't help anybody else until you've like reached a certain level of success, but you need to be able to remember that you have to give to yourself so that you have something to give to other people. So anyway, that's my plug for self-care right there. I love a good self-care. Okay, will it pop up and tell me if somebody needs to come in? Okay, so today we're going to talk about strategic placement. The first thing that I want to ask, or I want to kind of talk about, is what strategic placement is and what it is not. Because some people, you're either on two fences about this. You think that it's like the only way to go, or you don't want nothing to do with it. And some people don't want anything to do with it because they don't know how to do it. So the first thing about strategic placement is you need to know your compensation plan so you can optimize that compensation plan to help you better your business. Not only so you can rank up, but also so you can get the most out of the compensation plan. So what strategic placement isn't? Okay, it is not, sorry, I'm multitasking here. It is not a get rich quick. Strategic placement is not the end all be all to Royal Crown Diamond in 14 months. That is not it. Strategic placement is not a way to shove off work and a way to help others onto somebody else. And I'll go to that here in a minute. Strategic placement is not a one-stop shop. And I think that is one thing that people kind of, they freeze, they get like analysis paralysis for a second or two when you talk about strategic placement because it's not A, then B, and then C. There is a way to do it, but it is not the same for every situation. It's a very individualized situation. So also what strategic placement is not, oh, I said them all. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but that's all I had written down. So if anybody else that has strategically placed, if you want to type out in the comments or unmute yourself, you can share with us what you think strategic placement is or what it is not. Does anybody have something they want to share? feel like Lucy might be saying something. Nope. Okay. I'm going to go on. So the other thing about strategic placement, and I kind of said this a little bit earlier, is you need to know the compensation plan. A lot of time when you're going to strategically place. So Kelly says maximizing the compensation plan and relationships. Yes, that is what strategic placement is. So when you're talking about the compensation plan, you need to know it. Now, I'm not saying that you need to know the ins and outs of every little bit in piece because it's complicated, but there's resources for that. But what you do need to know is how you get paid. Every single person that wants to use strategic placement needs to know the basics of the compensation plan. And you can say to me, so if you know me personally, you know I am not a green personality. I don't like graphs. I am not a numbers person. I am very happy with the fact that I know people who know things, and I have no problem saying this is not my area of expertise. And I hit up a friend and I send out an SOS. However, in saying that, when I decided to do the business for real, I studied the compensation plan. As a very yellow-red person, I watched, I would say, 15 to 20 different presenters explain the basics of the compensation plan. Now, every time I grasped a little bit of it, I grasped a little bit more and a little bit more, and I got very familiar with it. And so when the topic of strategic placement came up, I felt confident that I knew the basics of the compensation plan. So for the top, we're not going to go over the compensation plan today. That's not what we're talking about. But for the purpose of strategic placement, there's two things that I want you to know. The first one is the words enroller and sponsor. You have to know what those two things mean, and you have to know what those two things do in order to correctly strategic place and get the most out of your compensation plan. So I like to think of it like this. The enroller, again, I'm not a green personality, so I have to give myself tricks and tips to like figure it out. To me, the enroller is the educator. The enroller is the person that educated the new member into the world of Young Living. So if I educated a new person, and I'm actually going to use my family for this example because their names come easily to me, and then I'm not like, oh, Sally, Susie, Sonia, and then I'm like, oh, who is who? So I'm just going to use my kids. So if I, Michelle Sharr, introduced Wiley to Young Living, and I wanted to put him in my organization strategically placed, I would remain his enroller because I educated him into the Young Living lifestyle. I then will I will give him a different sponsor. So we know if you're not strategically placing, you enroll somebody into Young Living, you are their sponsor, their enroller. On the compensation side of things, you will get $25 and 25% of whatever their PV is. We say $50, but that's the breakdown. It's actually $25 and 25%. So if they purchase more than the 100 PV starter kit, then that amount goes up. For the sake of ease and the fact that I'm not a numbers person, we're going with $50, right? So I enroll Wiley. I am his enroller, but I'm going to strategically place him in my organization, let's say under Grace. So my daughter's name is Grace. I'm going to make Grace the sponsor. So knowing the terms of the compensation plan so that you know how to get paid is your number one responsibility. You need to know what an enroller is. You need to know what a sponsor is. And you need to know how you get paid from those positions. Okay. So now that we're clear on that, now that that's clear as mud for everybody, I know that when I enroll Wiley, I'm going to get my $25 or my $50. For the first 3 months of Wiley's enrollment, the enroller, me, is going to get 25% of his PV, as long as I've placed a qualifying order of 100 PV. Okay, so we're also gonna just assume I have done that, right? Because I need my Ningxia, I need my Envision, I need my vitamin D and my vitamin C. So I've already purchased those things, and I have 100 PV. Okay, so what happens, and I think this is where some people get confused or lost. They think, oh, okay, I enrolled this person and I'm going to strategically place. Now I'm just out. I'm just building their business for them, which is not, that is not a true statement. So I would put that under what strategic placement is not. You as the enroller are going to earn any bonuses the first 3 months. After that, the sponsor is going to get unilevel commission if they qualify. So if Grace does not place a 100 PV order on Wiley's month 4, 5, and 6 and beyond, she's not going to make any money off of that, and it's going to compress and it's going to come up to me. Yay me, my paycheck, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about why this is something that you need to know about as you are strategically placing more often, okay? So that is really how, when people are enrolling in the compensation plan, we need to know those things. You need to know sponsor, you need to know enroller, and you need to know who is getting what bonuses and what unilevel commission and what even that is. So if you don't know those things, we have great videos. People, I'm sure, have covered it. If not, you can just you can search in the DW Oil Hub or the Equipping page, and something will come up on the compensation plan. If you still have questions, reach out to me or someone else, whoever enrolled you in Young Living, and we can explain it to you more. But for the basics of this and the fact that I like to stay on time, we're going to keep going. So so we talked about what strategic placement is and is not. We talked about how it affects the comp plan. And then I want to share or talk for a second about sharing your strengths. So one reason I think strategic placement is important is if you are a high enroller. If you enroll 2 or 3 people a year into Young Living, strategic placement is not something you probably need to know a lot about. If you are enrolling multiple people a month throughout the year for a long period of time, I highly recommend strategic placement. I don't know. It says Randy isn't able to get on for some reason. He tried oil.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have a, oh, right here. It was me, sorry. I was multitasking and not looking. Okay, so what?
Oh, okay.
We got him in here. So if your strength is in enrolling multiple people a month for a long period of time, it would be wise to maximize the compensation plan to learn about strategic placement. So if you think that numbers are not your thing, I want you to delete that belief right now. I want you to get out a piece of paper. This is my piece of paper. I'm going to share it with you here in a minute. But we're going to actually like work out some ways. So I'm going to give you some skills. Let me put it this way. I'm going to give you some skills that if you need to strategically place, you're going to be able to do it. So grab that for you, or grab that paper. Also, if numbers are not your thing, which is a limiting belief that you just released, so that's not true anymore, I want you to find somebody to work with that is good at the things that you are not. So like I said, I am not a numbers person. I try to be, I really want to be, but it just doesn't always connect for me. Therefore, I have placed people in my inner circle who are really good at those things. And when I'm not able to come up with the answer, I ask. One of those people is on this call right now. I'll let you guess who it is. So actually a couple of them are. But anyways, so don't be afraid to say, okay, I know I need to do this, this, and this, but I'm not really sure how to get there. So work with somebody or find somebody who has the strengths that you don't. Okay. So the other thing that I want to quickly talk about before we get into the act of strategic placement is rank mapping. And I thought these were in the equipping page, but they are not. So we will figure it out. We will get them there. Let me put it that way. But right, this is something like rank mapping. So I don't know if you can see that. Everybody can see that. But ultimately, when you rank map, and you can do this this is Sharr, but you can do this for every rank. And it is literally, you are going to map out who goes where. So if I was going for Sharr, and let's say I just joined Young Living, I'm going for Sharr, I'm super excited. I had a great testimony with vitamin D and Ningxia Red. It's on my kick tonight, so sorry guys. And I shared that with 4 of my friends. 1, 2, 3, 4. With my order of Ningxia Red and vitamin C and vitamin D, I've now hit the rank of Sharr, right? Okay, this might look pretty familiar to people. This is really helpful you can do it for Sharr. I just did Sharr, Senior Sharr, and Executive. Senior Sharr and Executive. This is where it gets tricky. And this is why I recommend you start rank mapping at Sharr. Because then when you get to Executive and Silver and Gold, it won't be so hard for you. Again, learning those things in the little chunks so that when you have to put it all together, you can. So I've hit the rank of Sharr and I'm super excited. My friends are super excited. And month 2 happens and I shared with more people. And now I'm like, okay, I know a little bit about the compensation plan. Now, how do I strategically place? How do I maximize that compensation plan? So I recommend going to your next rank mapping. So what I like to do, and you'll see different ones, but put the person's names there. There's your 4 people. And your goal is to get them to Sharr, right? You get 2 people to Sharr underneath you, you become Senior Sharr. That's not true. You get 4 people underneath you, to Sharr, you get Senior Sharr. So visualizing what you need to do is super helpful. And I like to, as your month is going, you can fill it in. So let's say this person, so this is me, this is Grace. Under Grace, I put Wiley, and together they have an order of 500, let's just say. Okay, so when I'm looking at strategically placing, I'm looking at a couple of things. One, I like to help other people. So where can I put somebody that is not only going to help me, but is going to help them too? The first thing I like to do is look when somebody is close to a rank. So if I have my rank mapping sheet and I know where people's PV is, I can look at the sheet and I can say, okay, Wiley, I enrolled Wiley's friend's mom. That's the same connection group, if you will. It would be wise of me to put Wiley's friend's mom under Wiley, right? So I'm going to continue out that leg by putting those people there. So I remain the enroller. I get the bonus for the first 3 months. And then after that, Wiley, being the sponsor, would get the unilevel commission. Okay. So that's my first rule. When I strategically place, I like to put people of similar contacts together, because as I enrolled Wiley's friend's mom, I'm not only helping Wiley reach his goal, I'm helping Grace reach her goal, which is helping me reach my goal. You see that? So that is what I like to do first and foremost. If I know somebody that is in a like-minded community, so, and some people do their legs, they'll have like a church leg, a family leg, a school leg, a neighborhood leg, whatever your legs are. And they will try to keep those people together. Why? Because people that have something in common typically have something else in common, right? So if you are hosting a class, let's say you're hosting a class and you just want to have it for one leg, and Wiley is really good at playing the trumpet, you could then have a class around kids who play trumpets, and his friends' moms might be more wanting to come because you have something in common. Do you see how that kind of shapes? Okay. So when you're looking at where to place somebody, when you strategically place, that's the first thing I look at. Who do they belong with? And who needs help reaching their goal? So if you only have one person that you enrolled this month and you want to strategically place them somewhere, those are the first two things I would look at. Now, if you're enrolling lots of people, I like to actually do this ahead of time. And I like to know, like, I like to forecast on the bigger one, and I like to know exactly where they need to go. So I know the next person that I enroll is going here. That's if they don't have a common interest with somebody else in my organization. So let's say, I'm going to use Jared. That's my husband, but let's just say I don't know Jared, and he just joined. He found my link on Instagram. I don't know him. I'm not on Instagram, but he found my link on Instagram and he just joined my team. So that is somebody, once I started chatting with him and I realized that I don't know where he belongs because he doesn't really have a like common group, I would then look at my rank mapping and I would look ahead and I would say, okay, he doesn't fit anywhere. He doesn't have a common group. Now I'm going to look and see and maybe they're not even close to a rank. Maybe it's somebody that's just been I don't like to say hustle, but like they've been doing the things. They've been reaching out to the people. They've been following up with their people. They've been just a really good leader with the people that they have. And so maybe I want to just bless them and put this person under them. So those are kind of what I do to decide where I'm going to strategically place somebody. Now, if you, sorry, I lost my place in my notes because I got to talking. Who would have thought? The other thing that I like to use, and this was on the equipping page, this is hot dogs and boxes. If you have never seen this one, but maybe it's like boxes and then hot dogs, I'm not sure. But this is kind of, if you already have a team kind of growing, you can use this one instead. This is you. You're going to put your legs. So this is your 7 legs. And then you can put their people here. So their 2 legs, their 2 legs, their 2 legs. And then you can put your fillers in these. Does that make sense? They're kind of color coded, so you can see that. But this is another sheet that I like to use that you can visually see where people are going. So I know in the questions, in the post that I made on Facebook, somebody asked what you do with, and maybe I'm not going to say this right, but what do you do when you have a family member or your spouse as a placeholder? Was that pretty much the question? I feel like. Okay. So if you enroll your spouse, you have to put them on your level 1 or your level 2. That is in Young Living's policy and procedures. Since I bring up policy and procedures, that's another one that I am like, oh, that's such a green activity. I can't possibly read that. It's too much. It's too wordy. I highly, highly recommend printing it off and reading it so you know what is okay and what isn't. That is part of our responsibility in sharing Young Living, is that you know what the policy and procedures say. So policies and procedures does say that you have to have your spouse on your level 1 or level 2. Now, I personally put my spouse in my third leg on my level 2. My third leg wasn't growing super well. In fact, it had fallen apart. I think I'm on like the third time that it fell apart. The third time it was going, and then it like just crashed. And so I wanted a little bit more buy-in with my third leg. And so I put my husband in there. So what I do when I enroll somebody, I am their enroller. And then I strategically place people under my husband. So that is when you're going to pull out your senior star rank mapping, and you're going to put, like, I would put Jared here, and I would do the people that I have placed under him. And then I would go on from there. So the first question I would ask is, what is your goal? So what is your goal for having that person as a placeholder? Do you want to, do you yourself want to reach Royal Crown Diamond and you need a 6th leg? Perfect reason to strategically place under a placeholder. If your goal is Royal Crown Diamond and you put all of your work and your energy into one leg, might not be a great place to strategically place, because you're going to have a really big thunder thigh and not a lot going on out here. So I don't know what your reason is for strategically placing under your spouse, but think about that. So I'm going for the rank of gold. Maybe my goal is that I become gold and my husband becomes the Royal Crown Diamond. And gold is all the further I want to become. I want to go. That's fine. Like, nobody's here to tell you that that's right or wrong. But so again, maybe your goal is to get your spouse to silver. I feel like silver is an income that is or could be life changing. So maybe your goal is, you're already a silver, you're making that silver income, you make your spouse in your third gold leg, and you strategically place under him to get him to the rank of silver. Again, I would go back to either the boxes and the hot dogs, or I would go back to the executive or print off the silver rank mapping, and I would place people in that appropriately. So when I say that there is not like a one-shot ABC way to strategically place, there's not. There's not. I don't think anybody that has strategically placed says, well, there's probably somebody that says, this is the way to do it, this is the only way to do it, check the boxes off. You're going to put this one here and this one here and this one here, and you're just going to check the boxes off. I don't think anybody that is sharing from a relationship and heart perspective would tell you that. So now, if your goal, what happens? Your goal, let's say, is to get your spouse to silver, and you have. So now you're making a silver income. You have hopefully 3 legs, and now he's silver. What do you do? If you don't have a 4th leg, what do? You find another placeholder. Hopefully you found another placeholder before that. Like, as he's transitioning into silver, you're building that next leg. But some people have blessing legs. They place people at the top of a leg and they build underneath them just to bless them with an income. Maybe it's a charity that you love, or a family member that could use the financial support. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's your business and you can do with it what you want to do. Now, that placeholder does need to place a 100 PV order. Personally, I don't I have, and it has burnt me. So I no longer place people under someone who is not on essential rewards at 100 PV, who is not bought in to Young Living, and not just like, oh my gosh, I love peppermint because it smells like candy. Like, I strategically place under people that are bought into Young Living as much as I am. That maybe they don't feel confident that they could build a business. Maybe life situation they aren't naturally sharing. But I personally no longer put people under people who are not like, if I had to give up my Young Living products, I would cry for like weeks on end. Like, I don't know how I would manage. Those are the people that you want to strategically place under. So, unless it's somebody that, um, is building a business, is, maybe they're super close to the rank of senior star and you have an enrollment and your enrollment will push them over the edge. That's a great reason to strategically place. It maybe it's and I will just be really vulnerable with you guys. I have not stayed up on the new bonuses. And the new, I don't even know what it's called actually, silver bound bonuses. I am not up on that. So thank you. I needed that. I did when they very first came out, and then I haven't looked at it in probably a month or two. So I can't speak to that, but I even think don't we even have some sheets like this, Britta, that are on the silver bound bonus? I found some today that was in the equipping page, I think, that we made a long time ago. Not a long time ago when they came out. So again, get out stuff like that. And let me go back to strategic placement is intentional. So be intentional with your thought behind it. Take time, quiet time to sit down with the papers. And you guys, before we had cute papers that somebody made, this is what I did. I wrote it on a piece of paper. You don't need the pretty paper. I would take sticky notes and I would cover up my thing. I would write who the person was and their PV, all of this stuff. So you don't need the pretty paper. You just need to sit. You need to take some time, whether it's at the beginning of every month or the beginning of every week. And you need to just sit quietly with that and decide what you are going to do. And so with doing strategic placement, you are being intentional, which is a huge part of our business, and being able to maximize on the compensation plan. So I think that was all I had in my notes. Does anybody have specific questions? Like I said, it's not a 1, 2, 3, you're now at the end process, but there is a way to do it intentionally and strategically to maximize the compensation plan. You can type it in the notes too, or the chat section too, if you don't want to unmute yourself.
I don't mind talking. This is Randy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think one of the keys is building teams. And so like you suggested, if somebody knows someone, then they're naturally going to be willing to work together with them. But I'm one of the things that I've noticed is some people who are either brand new to the concept of multi-level marketing or building a business that's personal, that's this type of activity, they struggle when you try to explain to them the benefit of building layers deep rather than having all of the people that you first sponsor into the business right next to you as first levels. And I've struggled with that. There's a couple people that I really, and again, it's their choice. If someone buys into this concept, and especially if they share the name with you and you help them sponsor, it's obviously their choice. If they really, 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 really want someone right next to them, lifelong friend, whatever, I understand that.
Yeah.
But when you are coming from a perspective of understanding how this business works, and you're trying to think ahead to say, if you place that person underneath the other person that kind of knows each other, they're gonna will be willing to work together.
Yeah.
Whereas that likelihood that they're willing to work together in the long run is not as strong, because neither one of them is benefiting from the other.
Right. So
That's one thing I'm struggling with, is helping people learn that concept from the beginning, and not have them push back saying, well, no, I want all of my people to be right underneath me.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
So I have two things for that. One of them is, again, learning the compensation plan. When you know and understand the basics of the compensation plan, you will see that that does not benefit you. I mean, it does benefit you, but you could optimize the compensation plan better if you don't do that. Now, the second part of that is being a leader. Sometimes we have to bite our tongue, and we have to let people make that mistake. And it stinks and it's no fun, but they'll either learn and next time they'll be like, oh, she was right. Or they'll continue to make that mistake and eventually be like, why did I do this? And maybe Britta can speak to that more. I have not yet came across a person that was like, why didn't I not listen to you? When you talk about strategic placement and you were encouraging them to do it and encouraging them to do it, and they don't, and then eventually they don't meet their goal, and they're like, well, why didn't I meet my goal? And they see why, they're like, oh, I should have listened to you. And so that is also why I recommend finding somebody who is good at the things that you're not good at. Because sometimes when I'm not good, or I have my blinders on to the thing that I want, I can go to my trusted source and I can say, okay, this is the situation. But they're seeing it without those blinders on. And they're seeing it, especially if they're good at the things that you're not good at, and then they can explain it to you in a way that that's using their strength. And so when you come across somebody like that is like, nope, I want everybody on my level one, that's their choice. It's their business and they can do whatever they want with that. However, I would continue to go back to educating them with the compensation plan. And so I don't know if you were on when I mentioned this, but so I, as the enroller, then make them the sponsor. If they don't place their 100 PV order, there's compression. So we never see compression. It happens virtually on like 11:59 and 30 and a half milliseconds virtually in the virtual office at the end of the month. Like, we never see compression if you open up your virtual office, but it happens. So in my example, if Wiley doesn't place his 100 PV order, that is going to roll up to Grace. If she doesn't place her 100 PV order, it's going to roll up to me. So a lot of times people will, well, I want to keep them close to me, but what they're really saying is, I want the money. And they can still get the money. The money is still there for them to get, even if they strategically place. So, and most of the time, they're probably going to get more money because that person is going to have more volume. I mean, again, it's just knowing the compensation plan, but I would go back to the compensation plan and explaining it to people, because, especially, no offense, but if they're men typically get numbers. I mean, wouldn't you say, like, I mean, my husband is a numbers guy. You can tell him how amazing Thieves Essential Oil is and how awesome Ningxia Red is for our immune system. And he was like, yeah. But the minute that my Young Living income paid our mortgage, he was in. I mean, he was more in. I mean, he was in before that. But you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of times guys just need to see the numbers. And not saying that women don't need to see them either, but a lot of times if you're like, oh, well, it's going to help everybody. I'm like, oh, well, if it's going to help everybody, I'll do that, you know? So that's my yellow personality. But I would just go back to the compensation plan. Because once they learn that, they're going to be like, I get it. I get it a little more. And then if they choose not to do it, that's their choice. Sorry, does that not answer your question? I kind of
No, it does. And that's the whole point. I tried to explain that and it was not,
and I also
maybe I was a little too pushy and maybe I needed to give them more time to think it through. I don't know.
I would also refer them, and I talked about this in the very beginning, when I am not a green personality. And so when I knew I wanted to do Young Living as a business, I watched videos on the compensation plan. I watched like 10 to 20 different videos on like the basics of the compensation plan until I found somebody that talked the way that I understood.
Yeah.
And so that might be another third party tool that you can use, is somebody else explaining the compensation plan to them, and you're out of it. Like, it's not what you want them to do. It's not what you want them to know. It's like they're going to absorb the information the way that is best for them. And then then you guys can have a conversation about it. But every once in a while, you just got to let people make their own mistakes. And it stinks because I look at my leaders like my kids, and I don't want them to fail, and I want them to be amazing. And I know they have all this potential. But sometimes, like my kids, they don't listen. And there's consequences, right? If my kid decides to go outside without a coat on and it's raining, he's gonna get wet. It's probably a little dramatic, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Let's see, explaining. Sorry. Oh, yes. So is that Britta? Sorry. Okay. So also, and I think I did forget to talk about that. So I said in the beginning, E reminds me of the educator, but that does not take the sponsor out of the equation. So a lot of times I will, if I have somebody who, let's say they go to the same church, they enrolled with me, I'm placing them under somebody, they go to the same church, we can both be somebody that they go to for support. And that's another thing I would encourage you to have a conversation, like a real true conversation with people about, is when you are strategically placing under them, what is your expectation of them regarding this person, and what is your expectation for them not to do? So obviously it's pretty easy for me. It's my husband, I kind of make the rules on that. But when you are working with people outside of your marriage, if you are, strategically placing under a builder who has been amazing and they're almost to their goal, and you got this enrollment who didn't have anywhere to go, you as the enroller need to make that decision. Am I going to have Wiley educate this new enrollment, or am I going to be that person? You need to have that conversation with the person that is being the sponsor, and you guys need to be in agreement on that. I have some people that I have strategically placed that I did it so that somebody would hit a rank, so somebody would hit a rank, so I would hit my rank. And that's why they went there. I have other people that I have strategically placed because they have a common bond with somebody else. So that person might go to the sponsor, and they might end up having a great relationship and really bonding. And sometimes they come to me with questions, but a lot of times they just kind of handle it amongst themselves. That's okay too. It does not have to be one way or the other. It can be somewhere in the middle of that. But I definitely recommend, if you are heavily strategically placing, that you have that conversation with the sponsor, especially if they are building a business. Am I sending them the newsletter every month, or is Michelle sending them the newsletter every month? Am I doing a monthly follow-up phone call with them to see if their ER got there, or is Michelle doing that? And sometimes it might be on a month-to-month basis. Like, hey, I'm sending out my newsletter. Are you including these people or not? Great conversation. Like, super easy conversation to have. And so I highly recommend keeping those lines of communication open so you can have those conversations. And again, that's another reason, like, we need to, we don't do this business just for the paycheck or the thank you check that Young Living gives us. We do this business because we honestly truly care and have a heart for people. And so remember that when you're working with your leaders, this is their business too, but it's also your business. So you need to do what's right for your business, but remember, they have skin in the game too. Sorry, I just went off on another tangent. Sorry. Okay,
Oh,
I'm
you're
gonna
good.
stop. I'm gonna stop the recording, and if we want to still chat, stop recording.